on this computer. Okay, and Sarah's here. Good. So, okay. Welcome, Sarah. Perfect timing. So we now have 33 people present. I'm sure people will be arriving any moment. So let me just begin by welcoming everyone. We're really very excited about this project. We've been talking about it for a while, and today is our official kind of launching. And what we want to do tonight is just explain what we're looking to do and invite people to consider participating in any way that they would like to. Just basically a little history. Vouchers have been, in many cases, the best way for folks who are without housing to get into housing by giving people a little bit of extra assistance to be able to pay for housing that they couldn't normally afford. And historically, most vouchers have been funded Section 8 vouchers. But under Ronald Reagan, federal housing assistance dropped by about 2/3. So since then, about 1980, far less federal money available to help people pay for their housing. And under George Bush Jr., new Section 8 vouchers virtually disappeared. So the city, under Mayor Bloomberg, tried to come up with a way of replacing the kind of filling in the gap. And he came up with a few voucher programs. A few of them were ill-conceived. One was working relatively well, but then, to the point where about 70% of the people from shelters who got a voucher did not immediately become homeless after the voucher ended. It was a 2-year time-limited program. But under Governor Cuomo Jr., he decided he wasn't interested in continuing the program. And then Bloomberg decided he would cancel it. And over a period of about a year, when around 17,000 households lost their voucher, about 30,000 more individuals ended up in the shelter system. So when Mayor de Blasio became mayor, he immediately reinstituted the voucher program. The problem was at that point that the vouchers barely paid for apartments. At one point, there were 16,000 outstanding vouchers. There were 500 apartments citywide that you could pay for with those vouchers. It was a cruel joke. Finally, City Council, with a lot of support and encouragement from folks that we work with, including Eric. I think Eric has been a part of that group, Homes Can't Wait, for many years. We finally got the City Council to increase the voucher level to the point where, at that point, about 2 years ago, there were about 70,000 apartments that were rentable under the voucher level. Problem was that because for a number of reasons, many landlords were unwilling to rent to people with vouchers. One reason is because they had been burned before by the voucher program that was canceled by Bloomberg. Another reason is because often landlords are concerned that a voucher holder may not be a good tenant. In fact, we spoke to an individual who was a landlord who told us that he had lost $25,000.
Now you can see that. You want a table now?
$25,000 in damages from a voucher holder. So there are a number of reasons why vouchers are difficult to implement. One reason is because of landlords' concern about the voucher holder not being a good tenant. Another is, frankly, because the city's administration sometimes takes a lot longer than one would hope. And then another reason is some landlords are holding their apartments off the market because they're trying to raise the rents. So we have a lot of challenges. But we feel our experience has been that if we can convince a landlord that the tenant would be a good tenant and a decent tenant, they would like to. We feel we can convince landlords to take a chance on voucher holders, and that's the purpose of this project, which we're calling the Fellowship of Accompaniment, and that is to provide support to tenants so that they can kind of have stable lives. We know that things happen in all lives, but often when you're coming out of homelessness, clearly many more things can intrude that can make it more difficult for you to be a stable tenant. So our purpose here is to connect voucher holders with support people who will help kind of accompany them, help them address issues that may come up, whether it be medical, financial, legal, childcare, whatever it is, emotional. And to do that, not alone, but to do that in consultation with a number of the people who are here tonight, who will be able to help guide us through the logistics of the voucher process. So we have developed an agreement that we call a covenant with voucher holders. Now, the program is called the Fellowship of Accompaniment. We're calling the voucher holders our fellows. We've developed a covenant for support people. We're calling them partners. We've also developed a working arrangement with Celinda and her firm about how they can help provide some logistical support to the tenants, not only in the rent up, but ongoing. We've also discussed with our friends at New Destiny Housing, and I think Adrian is here. Hey, John, good to see you. About helping provide ongoing support for folks they've already housed, because they do a great job. And I think we'll hear from Adrian. I can't see her on the list, but hopefully she's here. They've done a great job. Adrian's really figured out how to unlock the voucher puzzle to get folks into housing. But then after 3 or 4 or 5 months, they don't have the staff to continue to provide support. And sometimes people still need someone to hold their hand. They need somebody to just say it's going to be okay, and let's figure out what the problem is. I mean, just giving an example, one of the people who are here, we're trying to find him housing. He's on probation. The probation officer, the parole officer, has to approve his address. I had no idea this was a problem. Now we got to go back and say, can we find another address that your parole officer likes? So these are issues that you don't even expect will come up, that do come up. And the fact is, and I think Vicky's here and she will share in a minute, some people can it takes them a long time to get into housing, even after they have a voucher. And doing that alone can be a terrible ordeal. So I'll stop there and I'll invite a few more people in. And I think I want to start now, if I can look at my agenda, by inviting some folks who are currently sitting with vouchers to tell us a little bit about who they are and what they've experienced thus far. So, yeah. So if I could ask Parrish, you want to introduce yourself and say a little bit about about a minute or two? Parrish was with us for the first workshop we did about almost a year ago, and then Parrish introduced us to Vicky. So Parrish, you're on. About 2 minutes. Just introduce yourself.
Well, how y'all doing, everybody? This is Parrish. I'll be honest with you, it's been a little rough for me because I did a long stretch in prison. And when I came home, in fact, 32 years. In fact, when I came home, I mean, I was out here in the streets doing a lot of positive stuff, lobbying for different things to be changed. I decided to give back. And a couple of times I went out, quite a few times I went out with my voucher, and I ran across a couple of landlords, and they was very straight up with me. They said, listen, I'm not saying you. You seem to be very well dressed. You seem very articulate, but the majority of people that have these vouchers have some real mental health issues, things of that nature. So from a landlord point of view, just look at it from a landlord point of view. Would you rather rent to someone who has a job and who has be a little more secure and stable, or rent someone who may have mental health problems, things of that nature? Currently the public you're looking for, I just gave that up. But when you can give me your name and I'll keep you in my my book as a possible candidate, because you don't seem to fit that category. I said, well, don't you think it's kind of bad that you look at things that way? So listen, I'm a landlord. I got to think about my property.
Great. Thank you, Parrish. Is Vicky here? I saw. Okay. Yeah, Vicky, are you here? No. Okay, I saw her pop in. Maybe she popped out. I think, is it Michael? Michael, are you here? I say, oh, Adrian's here. Good. Michael, are you here? So let me just ask anybody who is currently holding a voucher, and I know, Devon, you're holding a voucher, so I'm going to ask you to go last of the voucher holders, but anyone else who's currently holding a voucher, actually, who's that? Came in early. What's your name?
Magali?
Yes.
Magali.
Yeah, Magali, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself. And welcome, Adrian.
Hi, hello, hi, Adrian. Hello, everyone. So I got my Section 8 voucher on Valentine's Day, and I have only seen 3 apartments, 2 tiny studios, and I saw a 1-bedroom last week, but the landlord went with another tenant, obviously. Short background. Let me see, I have a bachelor's degree. I was working as a cater waiter before the pandemic hit. And my plans really is to find a bar back job and continue to pursue freelance work. But right now I'm in between shelters. I was in the shelter for almost 2 years. I had an issue, and DHS doesn't seem to be committed to resolving the issue. So I haven't returned to the shelter in about 2 months. I've been staying in respites, and like, there's only so long I can keep doing that. So, and yeah, I've been given the runaround with the voucher. So
Thanks, Magdalene. Good to have you with us. This is the first time we're meeting. I'm really happy to meet you.
I actually met you at a sleep out event last year.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Oh, yes. I never know who I'm sleeping with these days. What can I say? Anyway, I'm glad you remember. Okay, so do we have any other voucher holders here? I know we have Devon. Anyone else who's with us who can speak about their experience? Okay, Devon, why don't we go? Why don't you tell us? You're going to be speaking a little later, but tell us a little bit about your experience. You are now housed with a voucher, so introduce yourself and take a few minutes, and you're going to talk a little more later.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Devon Nash. I'm with a Real Broker. I'm a housing specialist there. I was in a shelter with my nephew for 4.5 years, in a family shelter, at $3,159.52 per person, totaling $6,153.52 per month. And we stayed there for 4.5 years. And I said that with that kind of money, you could have bought us 3-bedroom condo with 2 baths and a parking spot, and still have money left over. So that's how I got started in advocating for vouchers and things like that. So I go to the budget meetings, and when they propose certain things in the community, like there was a community who needed a park, and it was going to cost $500,000. And they was like, well, we can't do it because we're so strapped for money. And so the commissioner was there. And when I got a chance to talk, and I was telling him that he did have the money, that if they would just increase the vouchers, and instead of putting people, because they gave a guy like $31 million to build a shelter. So I was like, well, why wouldn't you give him to build 288 rooms? Why don't you give him the money to build, permanent housing? And so, it started from there. And I got in contact with got hooked up with a whole bunch of activists, and I'm also with CCA, Center for Community Alternatives, and that's with people coming home from prison, helping them find jobs and things like that, and housing. And that's one of the main issues. And we just got a law passed where they can no longer discriminate against you based on your past criminal history. And we're trying to get a few more other laws changed, but it's a start. It's slow going, but it is going. So
thank you, Parrish.
Everyone with voucher holders.
Yeah, I just want to say, Parrish and I both suffer from the problem that we have too much, that we know too much. So I'm gonna control us both and not get into the politics right now. But it's great to have Parrish engaged in this beyond just, we need to promote public policy solutions that'll make life easier for folks. We also have to implement the policies we have, and Parrish is, I think, very active in both. So thank you, Parrish. Oh, and now Vicky arrived. So let's wait for Vicky to get herself settled. And I want Vicky to share her story a little bit. Also, I see that I just wanted to say that, so Devon met me. Devon and I met because a number of us here are also involved in what we call Street Homeless Advocacy Project. And I want to get to Jeff's question in a second, where we are out on the street every Thursday. I had the Midtown team in front of the Church of St. Francis of Assisi. We're out there every Thursday, reaching out to folks, helping them to try to get housed or to get out of the street. And Devon came as a volunteer to our group, and we learned that he has an expertise in vouchers, so we asked him to join this project. But Jeff, in answer to your question, well, Vicki, I'm going to ask you to speak next when you get yourself settled. So there are various options available to people on the street. And of course, there are the congregate shelters that most people don't want to go into. Now, this is for singles. For families, there are hotels. But for the singles, there are congregate shelters, which are sometimes 20 or 30 people in a room. And then there are what are called safe havens. Sarah's back. Safe havens or stabilization beds that are supposed to provide a little more intensive care. The problem is that some of them that what people really want is a single room. There are very few single rooms. There are a few more double rooms, and there are other what are called congregate safe havens, which is almost a contradiction in terms. So sadly, there aren't nearly enough options that are acceptable to folks on the street that are available. Obviously, good rooms, single rooms, people stay in, so they don't become available too often. So we have a multiple challenge at many levels, getting people from the street into something that's safer than the street, and then getting people into housing that is obviously what they want. And so I consider it like a supply chain issue, and we're trying to move things everywhere along the chain. Peter Cook, who's with us tonight, Peter and I are involved in the project at the other end of the supply chain, trying to help congregations, as you know, with property, to see if they can build housing on their property. So, you know, every place along the way, we need to make progress. But it seems to us that if we can help vouchers be more effective and get people with vouchers into housing, we can really move very well into reducing the pressures in the shelter system and in the safe havens, because once people are in housing, they then become a resource and not a deficit. Hard for people to help others when they're in a very uncomfortable circumstance. So, Vicki, are you with us?
Hi.
There you are. Hi, Vicki.
Yeah, I made it. Yes. Hi. How you doing?
Great.
You
so
too.
Listen, Vicki, we've been asking people with vouchers to share a little bit of their story, and I'm wondering if you can take 2 minutes to share your story with us.
Okay. Well, I'll take 2 minutes. I'll make it as quickly as possible. The problem that I faced within the voucher system was I was working full time, and the problem with people that were in this system, in the shelter system, the people were not qualified to prepare the packages that need to be presented to the state for approval to be able to execute and enter into your new apartment, home, or whatever. The problem was they were obtaining one paycheck stub at a time, where it requires 4 complete paycheck stubs for 1 consecutive month, and then you submit that complete package to the state, and then it will go through. But for them to constantly, it was just a never-ending cycle, and this went on for a whole year, which thank God the landlord waited that long. I went to Congress and made sure that, and I fought diligently to make sure that they had full comprehension of how these packages should be presented, and that was through Samaritan Villages, which they have many. They're really big in this whole housing system. So that's it. These people need to be educated to effectively, the people that are in place, to help families that are displaced or individuals to maintain a new foundation of life. And if they're not capable or educated enough to do this properly, those people, I was in there for 5 whole years.
Yeah.
And I was in there for 5 years, working for 5 years, 7 days. And every time they're like, okay, your package was approved. So, okay, it's approved. I did everything, dotted every I, crossed every T. All we need is 1 paycheck stub. So after so long, I was like, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. So once I figured it out and I had to educate them, I had to go to the director of Samaritan Villages for the state of New York and the city of New York. I went from the bottom to the top, and then from the top to the bottom, for them to understand and comprehend how these things should be done And now those families, the place that I was residing at formerly, are moving. And she was able to go and present that to the commissioner for them to change and make sure that everyone is on one accord. These people that are preparing the proper documentation for the families or individuals to be able to go into housing. If they're not educated to know what's going on, that's making the situation that much worse.
Yeah.
And that happens with a lot of people that work.
It
And
does.
that's
And I
all I
want
have
to
to
say,
say.
so Vicky finally, after 5 years, is in her own place with her 2 children.
Yes,
And
yes,
it's a wonderful thing. And Vicky's
yeah.
also willing to help us
God bless,
and help
Vicky.
other
God bless.
people
Thank you.
going through this to be able to manage the ordeal. And so, Vicky, we're so happy for you. And we're so happy
Absolutely.
that you're willing
Thank you.
to reach back and help us. So that's really
Absolutely, yes,
on this.
because you know, the more knowledge that we have together to be able to help each other when needed, this is what we have to do because it affects everyone at the end of the day.
Thank you.
You're
Now
welcome. Thank you.
Now I want to introduce some support people. I want to introduce Drew, Pietro, and I'm not sure if James is here, but if you three could introduce yourselves, and Chibuze, for these are folks who are part of a system. Now Drew is working directly with us. Chibuze is with heads a community folks who many have vouchers. We're going to hope to help him get his folks into vouchers, and Pietro for doing some wonderful work with people on the street, helping people get into housing. So why don't we start? Drew, you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. My name is Drew Oldfield, and I guess I've been working with Mark for, I don't know, about two and a half years now. I came into working with him when I went back to college and was an intern, and now helping him put together the outline of the project for the Fellowship of Accompaniment, and have been helping him to kind of design the forms that we're working out and some of the, I guess, the content of what the actual meetings and support would actually look like.
Great. Thanks, Drew. Chibuze, you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, my name is Chibuze Okorie. I work with the Church of Gethsemane in Park Slope, Brooklyn. I try to help a lot of our brothers and sisters who are coming home from prison. I've been doing this for many years. It's a very difficult situation when they come back home, they cannot find affordable housing. And what I will advise here is the most important thing I want us to do here is to find a way we can be able to convince the landlords who hold this, against them, especially those who have a criminal record. Yeah. They are scared of them, and they can be able to give them housing because of the stigma, And again, I find out that most of us who have the voucher end up expiring in their hands. They can't afford to use it. Even if they use it, they can't pay their fair share because they have no job, to help them pay their fair share. I thank you for this project, and I hope it's going to help every one of us, especially those in my church who have no likelihood of support, especially to get a place to live. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It's great to have you. And so, Pietro, you want to share a little bit about what you do and who you are?
Thanks, Mark. It's good to see some friendly faces, some familiar faces here as well. As Mark said, my name is Pietro Bartoli. I'm here with as part of the community of Sant'Egidio, which is a Catholic lay movement that has been present in the United States for about 30 years. And befriending folks in the streets or in other delicate situations for about a dozen now. And in the last year or so, two years, we've really started getting closer to folks with vouchers and getting more involved in their day-to-day lives. Sant'Egidio is an entirely voluntary organization, so all of us have day jobs. But I think what we do is particularly relevant here in the light of something that Vicky said, which is, in her own story, how often the folks who need the help are not being provided the help that they need by the people who should be doing it. Those people themselves don't have the information, don't have the capacity, are overworked, whatever it is. And so the story we hear over and over again is despite the systems being in place, despite even in the best case scenario, things just don't work. People aren't listened to. People aren't supported. People are given the runaround. The runaround is really the theme that I think anyone on this call can
That's true.
rally around, can testify to. And so what we do is really simple, and we do our friendships. We commit to being available to those who ask us to be, however we can be, and we learn alongside you. And sometimes that enough is helpful. It's enough to have somebody else who's willing to look something up for you, willing to go to an appointment with you, willing to write an email for you, call your caseworker and say, why hasn't this gotten done yet? So I'm really happy that Mark is standing this up, this fellowship accompaniment. I think this is something that Sant'Egidio believes very strongly in, that everybody has the capacity to do something. And really, as neighbors, we want to see a better and more united city. And this concept of being neighbors to one another, of accompanying one another's, is really integral to that. So thank you, Mark, for putting this together, and we'll be around.
Thank you, Pietro. Thank you for your work. Listen, I just want to tell you, his group is so inspiring. The work that they do is unbelievable. He's been such a help to many people we've worked with. And let me just say, Pietro will continue to be available to our community. I just say, before I introduce Sarah, who is a wonderful hero, even though she's often attacked for representing the city. She is not an apologist for the city. She is trying to help the city be more effective. And, we know that the city has an obligation to help everybody who comes through its doors. That's a hard job. And Sarah is also often the person who's looked to see if the city can do that. But I want to say that the way we're envisioning this fellowship, and then I'm going to ask Sarah to share a little bit about what she does. And Sarah has been very generous in offering to help us ongoing when we have an issue to deal with. As we're trying to deal with the larger policy issues, Sarah's been available and has helped very quickly in some cases to just resolve something that people said was unresolvable. But the way we're envisioning having this fellowship work is to set up a cadre of 10 voucher holders, 10 fellows and 10 partners at a time, to move as a community of 20 people and together learn from each other. We're not going to look to have 40 or 50 voucher holders in the same meeting. It's too much. No one can engage with such a large group. We're going to go 10 at a time, and then we'll go to another group of 10, and we can call on a lot of the folks in this room when issues come up that we need help with. So with that, I want to ask Sarah, who is one of the people we'll be looking to introduce herself and share a little bit about what she does. And I'll tell you a secret. Sarah told me that she went and saw, who did you see? A wonderful concert, someone we all love.
Joni Mitchell?
Joni Mitchell, an amazing thing.
Oh, nice.
Really wonderful. So thank you, Sarah. So Sarah's one of us, Sarah is one of us, and she's also with the city. So Sarah, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure. Thank you. So I am right now, I'm a housing advisor to the commissioner of DSS, but I spent time at DHS and HRA working on home base and the rental assistance. So I think Mark, do you just want to hear a little bit about the vouchers in the process?
Yeah, and just share a little bit. Yes, right. And just to know that, yes, exactly. Give us a walkthrough of what the process is, and yeah.
Sure. So the city's primary voucher that we're funding, and it's the biggest city funding voucher in the country, definitely by multitudes, is the City FEPS program. And that program requires that people need to earn below 200% of the federal poverty line to get into it. And it lasts for 5 years, but there is a good cause option that if people need to continue the voucher, they can continue, and that is extremely flexible. So basically, when you're talking to landlords, it's like, it's a very similar program to Section 8. It's ongoing if people need that assistance, and we have had people on it for many years now. The City FEPS is available in the shelter or in the community. In the shelter, folks need to be either working 10 hours or have someone who's disabled in their household. There's also a carve out for veterans. And when people are in the shelter, the DHS system either automatically, if people have an open public assistance case and all of their data updated with HRA, they can automatically get a City FEPS letter that goes to their shelter, or their shelters can request one through DHS. And the shelters are really the ones who are submitting people's packages to HRA for approval for the funds. And in the community, people need to be getting evicted and have a shelter history or with APS. And they can apply through a home-based program. And also Legal Aid and LISNY, we have a new pilot with them. So if the people can apply for home-based to stay in their apartment, if we can preserve it, along with some arrears, or to move. And the other thing to talk to landlords about is that, especially like those housing court cases, we can pay off a lot of arrears, tens of thousands of arrears sometimes. But if people are moving, that landlord can get, we call it a unit hold, and it's just 1 month of rent worth of bonus. We're saying like, oh, it's going to take at least 30 days. So here's a free month of rent. And then they get 4 months of the subsidy up front. So those upfront checks are pretty big. And if there's a broker involved, the broker gets an enhanced broker fee, which is 15% of the annual rent. So that is often $3,000-4,000. And we also have something called the special supplemental assistance fund. So if landlords are concerned, like, oh, what if there's damages, or what if I don't get paid, or whatever, the city does fund a security voucher. So they get the full value of a rent if they have damages or whatever. And for City FEPS, there's an additional $3,000 that they can apply for. So that's, depending on the rent of the apartment, up to like $6,000 that they have as kind of insurance if there's any issues that they're worried about, that they can, that they certainly don't get that if they're renting to folks without a subsidy. So, they may think that those people are less risky, but they don't have all of these incentives and, areas where they can apply to the city for some of these benefits. The city program, City FEPS, has an annual renewal. We try to make it as streamlined as possible. So unlike Section 8, we don't require an inspection to be scheduled and try to pass. And we are also very flexible. I mean, it's good when people renew before the end of their subsidy, but we also, if someone's late, as long as somebody's still in the apartment, we'll still do that renewal and we'll pay the retroactive rent. And those renewals we mail out to people about 4 or 5 months ahead of time. And nobody has to do anything in person. They can just fill out their income. We have their address in there already. They can say what their income information is, and submit that in through email. And we also, in the fall, late fall, are going to make it so people can submit that through the Access HRA app that they get their benefits in. So that should be an easier process as well. But when it comes to the actual process, there's kind of key components to all subsidies. Like the first part is when people find an apartment, it needs to go through a clearance. We got to make sure that the person who says they own it actually owns it, and that there's no, big lead violations, or that there's no heat and hot water active litigation, or sometimes there's like very dangerous violations on the Department of Buildings website. So we check that out. And once that passes, then either the shelter or DHS or the home base, they do a walkthrough of the apartment. And that's really making sure that the department meets health and safety standards. And then there's a set of landlord documents that include a lease, and then they have to sign an agreement with the rules of the program, and also telling us who we need to pay. And they also need to sign a security voucher that if they want that, which they should want it. And then on the tenant side, they have an agreement to be in the program and what their rules are. And we often need to update their income and put that package. That's most of the package right there. Put it all together. And then the last part can be tricky, but people need to, so the other rule of the City FEPS program is people either need to pay 30% of their income, or if they don't have any income, then they need to have an active public assistance case. So if you're a single adult, then you can get $215 a month goes to their landlord for shelter. So if you have no income, you really you can get everything covered as long as you open and keep your public assistance case open. And so we also need that to be open if people have no income, or we need to have people apply for benefits at the point they're moving so that we can cut all these checks and send them to the landlord. And also at that point, tenants apply for a furniture allowance, which is definitely not what people need to furnish an entire apartment, but the state gave us a certain amount, the city doubled it, and that is what we're able to offer at Move Out. And I don't know, do people want to hear about different subsidies, or is that?
No, I think it's good to start with the city PEP, since most of the
Okay, good.
vouchers out there are that. And Sarah, I just want to say again, Sarah has been tremendously helpful. Sarah is within the belly of the beast, so to speak. Sarah is trying to make the city programs work. We know that at this point, the city council has passed 4 bills that would change the voucher system, make it a little more liberal and more expansive. The mayor has said he wants to veto. We don't know what will happen. Gail Brewer was saying she hopes that the city council and the mayor can discuss and come up to an accommodation rather than the mayor spending millions of the city money to try to overrule the city council. But we don't know. But in any case, the fact is, it'll take 180 days for anything to be implemented. So in the meantime, we have 6 months to try to figure out how we can make the current programs work. And hopefully in the process, the programs will get even more workable. I know that Sarah and her team are doing a lot to get the systems to work better. This is, as Sarah said, by far the largest voucher program in the country. This is not easy. We're trying to help the city to be more effective. We don't consider the city an enemy. We consider the city an ally. We're trying to help the city to be more effective. I mean, it's a great city. Look, we've just accepted 50,000 individuals who came from another country, and we provided shelter for them. We didn't turn anyone away. So I think we all have to kind of pull together and try to make this thing work, even though it is tremendously challenging. No one wants it to work poorly. Everyone wants it to work well. Now, I also wanted to say, before I invite Adrian and Eric, who are both, I'd say, expert on the system, to share with us. I'm trying to decide who should go first. But I also want to say that I think Adrian and I think Eric are both available when we call on them to help us. But Devon and Pietro will be engaged with the program on a regular basis. So if most of you are like me, where a lot of what Sarah shared went over your head, then don't worry about it. There'll be people who we work with who understand a little more about the way the system works. 2 of them are Adrian and Eric. I'm just wondering who should go first. I don't know. I know we got some questions. We're going to wait till the end, but Adrian, could you go first and share with us what you've been up to? We met Adrian about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, when Drew and I were working on these emergency housing vouchers, which are federal vouchers, and we started putting a project together to create this resource guide, which Adrian has put together, which she's going to talk a little bit about what she does, and then she's going to share the guide. And Adrian, I'm giving you screen sharing privileges whenever you want. So the floor is yours, Adrian. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks for everyone being here and being interested in this topic. And I wouldn't call myself expert, but I will say that I've been doing this for a while. Started off at HRA as a housing navigator. I just want to come at it from a different angle, because I think we're kind of all talking about somewhat of the same thing. But I work at New Destiny as a landlord engagement manager, and our focus is on survivors of domestic violence and their children. So we focus on rehousing those individuals that are fleeing domestic violence, trying to get them to safe, permanent, and affordable housing. So they will go basically to all family justice centers across the city, and then they make a referral to our nonprofit. So the clients will come to us with city perhaps FAPS, HASA, Section 8, EHV. They'll come to us with any type of rental subsidy, and we meet them where they're at. So even if they don't have a voucher, we actually operate our own voucher program as well, called the Housing Link program. We basically provide, or we subsidize their rent for up to 24 months. So the focus of my team, which is the landlord engagement team, is the landlord. So like we were discussing earlier, I forget the gentleman, Chibuzi, I think. You were talking about the importance of, also trying to tap into the landlords, because just to go off a little bit on the side here, is not like we're talking about social housing. We're talking about housing, and most of the time it's going to be small homeowners, 6 units or less. They're going to be minorities. So it's not always going to be about, well, it should always be about the clients that we're serving, but it's also about, for our landlord engagement team, repositioning who that client is. And sometimes it's going to be the landlord. So do they need assistance with repair grants? Do we need to help them with getting the unit up to code? Like we're talking about with City for HEPS, is there incentives that we can offer so that they are more inclined to rent the unit to one of our voucher clients? All those things are leveraged when we're searching for housing on behalf of New Destiny Housing clients. Another thing that I wanted to mention as well is that we do see a need at New Destiny for what Pietro is doing, as far as, housing nonprofits can't be everything for the clients. We are caseworkers, but caseworkers are not, abundant. They're also not miracle workers, and it is very hard work. I mean, you can speak to attorneys in New York City who say housing law is really intense. It's a lot of work, and it's great when you have people on board who want to spread the work evenly, so that way you can accomplish the goal. And I do think you can hit burnout pretty easily in this job, in this position. So it is important to recognize that we're all just human beings. If someone has hit their limit, working with clients that are in a lot of trauma-informed positions, that are seeing a lot of issues in their lives, it's a lot for an individual to take on. So just acknowledging that, hey, the landlords need support as well. The case managers need support as well. Do we have individuals like Pietro's nonprofit or organization that wants to offer assistance with, helping the clients get from A to Z? That's perfect. That's something that we totally need help with as we navigate all of this. And another thing is, the privatization of healthcare, of housing, has not done us any favors as well. We have clients that are battling more than one issue. So it's about understanding that if we're going to work within the limits and confines that we have in the city, nonprofits like myself, we try to zero in on, hey, where are we getting our inventory from? What can we do to boost that? And sometimes it's going to be about, hey, let's reposition the way that we're viewing the clients that we serve. So on a little tangent, but I just wanted to come at it from a different angle about how stressful this work can be, and how important it is to try to zero in on, the unlikely clients in the situation, so that way, we don't see so much burnout here. But yeah, so New Destiny Housing is serving domestic violence survivors. And at this moment in time, we paced about 500 clients since the emergency housing voucher program started. So it's a huge milestone. And as the program wraps up at the end of the year, we're hoping that another 200 more will be placed. So that's good numbers for the city of New York. And yeah, thanks for having me.
So I want to ask Eric to make some comments, and then I'm going to ask Adrian to share her resource guides. Eric, any thoughts? Let me say, Eric and I have been working together for about, I think, 5 years or more. Eric has always amazed me with all the detail he's aware of and what in the minutia of the city program. So Eric, the floor is yours. Whatever you feel you want to share as some guidance to our project would be very welcome.
Sure. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Mark. I think it's been a little bit more than 5 years, but time kind of flies, I think.
I can't keep track anymore.
But yeah, I think that this could be a great opportunity to really help voucher holders. My organization, Homeless Services United, is a coalition of the nonprofit homeless service and shelter providers in New York City. So anyone doing outreach to shelter, to home-based services could be a member of ours. We have about 50 different nonprofits doing the work. So I don't do direct service, but we try to put our heads together with our members to try to figure out where there are bottlenecks, where there are disconnects in the policy and procedures, and then bring it back to Sarah and others at the city to try to put our heads together and collectively solve for the gaps there. I think two of the things that really struck me from our conversation tonight, which resonate with what our members are experiencing, is one, I think Mr. Chibuze mentioned earlier about trying to convince landlords. Like I think that's definitely a ripe place for opportunity where we can use more help. And where Adrian said, like trying to really help the case managers, trying to help the housing specialists with helping their clients, because what we're seeing right now is record high numbers of turnover and vacancies for the direct service positions, especially housing specialists, given they are some of the lowest paid positions in city contracts. They could be working at McDonald's for the same or even more money than what they're doing working for homeless shelter providers. So the work is extremely stressful. The people do it because they're committed, but at the same time, there's a lot of burnout. So there could be opportunities there when helping clients to put together their package, putting their documents together. I think could be another great way to help take some of the load off there. And as well as, I think one of the largest, most time-intensive parts of the application process is identifying viable units. So really going out with them to look for units, trying to find stuff online, since there isn't a magic list, which is, I know, a request that has been brought up a number of times, trying to keep a timely list of available units or brokers or anything like that. I don't know how likely that it is to do that versus being able to pound the, I guess, internet pavement, going on any of the real estate websites, trying to find locations where, because the vouchers do pay market rate. Like if you can find a place that falls within that, there's opportunities, but it's just a very time intensive one-on-one kind of thing. I'm not sure if there's other things you wanted me to speak to, Mark. I feel like those were really the places where I feel there could be a lot of help to get people into housing sooner.
Absolutely. So what I want to do now, and I didn't do it earlier, but what I'd like to ask everyone to do is put in the chat what role you think you might be interested in playing in this process. So you can say resource person, a support person. You could say help to find housing, help to find apartments. Say you have a voucher to reach out to other people. For example, if you're a part of a faith network, to reach out to other people who may also be willing to be partners. So just take a minute and write that in into. Great, I see Septagirl Yanger is willing to help find apartments. That's great. So just write however you think you can help into the chat, and we will keep this and we will follow up with you. I also wanted to mention that that Adrian has that that list, which she has in a zip drive. So she's going to send it to me and to Drew rather than go over it today. But it's a great list of various kinds of resources. As we said, people may have a problem with health, with education, with legal issues, with financial issues. These can all get in the way of people, being comfortable enough to be a good tenant. And we want to be able to help them with those issues. I just want to say one thing. Often people who are homeless are disconnected. I mean, they're isolated. When you become homeless, you lose a lot of your connections. In fact, some connections that you wanted to lose because they weren't very helpful to you. So when people are homeless, they really are very much in need of a support system, a healthy support system. And that's what we want to try to provide, a place where people can trust each other and support each other and offer each other help and guidance. So sometimes we have to fill that in because people have lost that or they never had it. Okay.
And Mark, if I may just throw in, I'm not sure if
Yeah, go ahead.
you mentioned it directly, but being a partner, perhaps to volunteer to, because I know you said support person, but the partner, I don't know if you've explained exactly how that would work and if people here would be possibly interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Luana, maybe you can take a moment, introduce yourself. Luana and I had a wonderful communication. Let me say that in finding partners, it's important that, we'll have an intake form for voucher holders. We'll have an intake form for potential partners. What we want to do is not just stick two people together, but make sure that those two people are willing to work together. And Luana and I had a great conversation about her being a partner. And also she shared the fact that given her experience, she has a lot more to offer than just being a partner to one individual. She can also be a great resource person to our cadre. So Luana, you want to introduce yourself for a minute? There you are.
Sure. I'm going to try to stay on camera. I might go to Mars, but I'll still be speaking. Okay.
There we go. You're good now. Good.
I'm heading there right now.
That's right.
So my name is Luana Green. Thank you, Mark. Hi, everybody. So I am a part of First Fruit Community Outreach. We started our outreach, my church, New Life, God's Promises, New Life Tabernacle, started our outreach during the pandemic when we saw that the homeless on the street were not being served. So we went out, we gathered our money together, and we started giving out sandwiches and PPEs and, you know, toiletries, whatever we could do to just help those that weren't being served. And from that, we just evolved into an outreach ministry with a 501c3, where we do monthly city harvest outreaches, and we do so many other different outreaches. One of the things that concern me is the housing crisis. So I'm going to jump forward. I spent about 30 years on drugs, and then from crack to heroin, you name it. And then I was fortunate enough to have my life turn around, and I was able to get a job for the city working as a caseworker for public assistance. And I worked for the city for 28 years. I became a manager for Medicaid, and then a manager at my last job as an auditor, auditing the cases for Medicaid. So I have a little extensive history with the HRA, let me just say HRA in general, from the auditing aspect to the client contact aspect. So I'm really concerned about the housing crisis that are going on. I work with Midtown South Community Council. I know John Mudd is here, the director there, and I work with the homeless and the housing outreach. I do a lot of advocacy and a lot of rallies about homelessness and things that surround, you know, demolishing buildings and, you know, just the displacement of people. So I also was a victim of domestic violence for 18 years. So I understand what that's like, and I understand what that looks like and how people can become discouraged and, you know. So anyway, with all that being said, I think I have a lot to bring to the table. I think I have a lot of experience. I think I just want to be a partner and support those that need the housing. I'm glad that everyone here is partnering with this issue, because I think housing in New York City is at a crisis level. We are just rallying against New York City Housing Authority because they want to demolish buildings here in Chelsea and displace people. According to them, they want to put them in housing until their housing is built, and then they're going to put them back in the apartments. We know that's not true. So there's so many different issues that are going on around housing, and I think that it's the most primary issue next to food. This you know, just the deficiency of food and the amount of income people have in order to live in a house, you know, to have reasonable accommodations. One of the primary, you know, as we learned in school, one of the primary pyramid is housing, right? One of the primary pyramid elements is housing. And I think it's really important, especially today, that we focus on getting people that want to live in housing, that are capable, that need whatever they need to learn how to live in a community environment, whatever it is that they need to learn how to pay bills, you know, how to maintain a household, whatever it is that I can do to help, Mark. That's why I'm here. I think I've said enough, but you get the idea.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll be back from Mars.
It's so good to have you with us. I'm telling you, I'm
Thank you
so
much.
inspired. People who are drawn to this project, I mean, I know most of you, you're all wonderful people, and it's so great to have you all in the same place. I think we can do a lot of good work together. I'm really looking forward to this. I think what we're trying to do is create a community, a supportive community. And as Adrian said, it's very easy to burn out. There's too much work and not enough of us. So if anyone can volunteer and lend their time and their good heart and their expertise and their curiosity, then I think we can make a big difference in a lot of lives. And you know, as it said in the Talmud, you know, when you save one life, it's said that you've saved the world. You've saved that person's world. And we can certainly save some worlds here. I'm really excited to have you all join us. Adrian has to leave at 7 o'clock. Adrian, thank you so much. And we'll look forward to working with you going forward. Adrian is really a wonderful wizard. I mean, I've been so impressed, and I'm so glad you're joining us in this, Adrian. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll definitely send out that package tomorrow to you in the morning to get out to everyone. Just some easy reading for individuals who want to get started with clients that have vouchers, or if you're on the other side and you need resources.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So Linda, why don't you introduce yourself and your team?
Let me take myself off mute. Hi, how are you? My name is Celinda Iaboni with Real Broker of New York. We cover the whole New York state. I have Karen Reed with me, one of my agents, and also Devon. I met with Devon when we opened up our Brooklyn office, and I was graced by his presence of his need and wanting to help our community. So I've been a broker for many years, since 1997. I've been in real estate, and I know that there's a huge need here in New York. I live on Long Island, and it's a crisis everywhere in New York, whether it's upstate, downstate, it doesn't matter. COVID really put a spin on it worse than ever, and it's something that is very close to me that I would like to help. I had a family member who also was in crisis and was living in a shelter. So I know of the complications that are going on, because I've heard it from her and also from others that have been coming into our office and hearing their grief of paperwork and people not getting back to them, and everything that everybody has said. It's been unbelievable. I have a lot of agents out there in our company that help in HRA, City FIPS, Section 8. So I know I sign a lot of forms, and I do a lot of help for the communities from upstate to downstate. So I'm very grateful, Mark, that you have welcomed us here, and we are very I get emotional, but I want to be able to help. We have been out there in force. We've got 23, we just signed 23 single rooms that we had to beat him down for probably a good 2 months, but we did. So we have housing. We also have another listing in Staten Island, and we have some in the Bronx.
Great.
So we are very eager to help our communities in the vouchers. So we are in force to do it. And I look forward to helping you in your venture. You're wanting to help other people, and that's what we're all about. That's what Real Broker is about.
Thank you, Linda. And I just want to say that as we have more good stories, we will have stories to give to you so you can convince landlords.
Exactly.
Good bet, right? We're going to work on this.
Beat them
together.
down. Yes.
And so Linda, if you wouldn't mind, there was a request someone made to have the
Yes.
speakers share their contact information in the chat.
Oh,
or
I
if anyone
did.
else as you guys, just making sure everybody put it there.
Yes,
Thank you
I
very much, guys.
absolutely did. I didn't put my email, and I do apologize. I'll do that in a few minutes. But I just want to say one more thing. When I met Devon in our office, I put him involved, and I had no idea. God is, I know everybody here, there's faith, right? I'm always led by faith. That is something that I always do. God opens a door and then closes the door so I can meet that person that needs to be with me. Devon, when I met Devon, where are you, Devon? Where are you?
Right there.
There you are, my love, my king there. When I met him and we both connected, and I knew he had something special and he was going to do something very big. And I made him the housing specialist for Real Broker in my office. I said, you're going to head this, and we're going to nip it in the butt.
Yeah.
And we did. We have our packet together for this, for the renters and for the landlords. And it's just about being out there and convincing them that there is a need and we need to help others. It's do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. And it's very important. We live by the golden rule. And Devon, I adore you. Thank you. And Karen, I adore you too. So I just want you to know we're here and we're going to do it.
Great. And let's take a moment to ask Devon to introduce himself. As I say, you're playing two roles, at least.
Yeah.
You're a voucher holder, and you're also a voucher expert. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've learned about vouchers. If you have any questions for Sarah or is Eric still here, anything that you don't yet know about vouchers that you'd like to know, but hopefully we'll be able to, we'll stay in touch with Sarah and with Eric and also with Adrian. But introduce yourself a little bit, Devon.
I'm Devon Nash, and I'm with Real Broker. I came to them in October because I was having issues with, I needed to find a place really fast. And I also, someone's in here from, who actually helped me get the apartment from Queens Defenders.
Mhm.
They actually played a pivotal role in helping me get an apartment. So I definitely want to thank them, but it wasn't easy. You know, you have to go through so many different channels, and because, yep, Stan, that's right, Stan.
There he is, Stan.
Right.
Good.
You know, it wasn't easy, and yeah, thank you very much, Stan. I love the apartment.
Great.
So, but yeah, it's just an everyday fight. I learned something new today, that the landlords will now get 4 months of rent now, so a total of 5 months altogether instead of 3, like I was, you know, told before. Because I've done a lot of research on it, and the thing was, I couldn't find, for 3 years I was knocking on doors and putting in applications and paying fees, and landlords just wasn't, you know, allowing me to move into their apartment. So I had to really advocate to show, you know, just cause. And I have a college degree, you know, I'm into real estate. I do a lot of different things, and I advocate for mental health. But still in all, I have a, you know, a felony. You know, I was released from federal prison in 2015. And so that played a lot on the background checks. And, you know, it was just so many different disparities. And so I was able to overcome that hurdle. And so I was like, for those who aren't able to overcome that hurdle, you know, if I could just get like 1 or 2 people, and they just started coming in like every day. Even I had counselors calling me, asking me how to navigate the system, different things like that. It's all about the portals.
Yeah.
So once you understand how the portals work, then you can really get to moving and finding, you know, housing with the vouchers. You know, and I'm here for the assistance with all of that. We definitely here for you. So anyone is insistence, and I also seen someone had a EHV voucher. I wrote down your information, and we'll try to get in contact with you probably tomorrow.
Thanks,
All right.
Devin.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me say that what we're
All
hoping
right.
to do is to work with Devon and Celinda and see to it that everybody that we work with, we connect them with a partner, so that when they get placed in an apartment, they have the support, so we can tell that landlord this is a good tenant, and then we end up being heroes with the landlords, because we don't want to have one tenant who goes in and ends up not having the support they need, and then the landlord will say, why'd you send me this person? They were having this problem or that problem. So that's really our plan. I want to also take a moment and ask Carol, who just joined us with Helping Hands Ministry, if you could introduce yourself. We also had a great conversation, and Carol is willing, I think, to play a support role. So Carol, welcome.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. I wasn't expecting to speak tonight, so pardon me if I'm a bit casual.
Sorry.
But it's really a pleasure and a blessing to join you tonight, and to hear all of the wonderful stories and be a part of this network. Our ministry, our church is called the Temple of Restoration, and I direct a ministry called Helping Hands Ministry. And we do lots of different outreach work. One area that we do help with is with transition from a homeless situations to permanent housing. We have a furniture voucher program where we're able to give a voucher for a major furniture store for new furniture. What we require is a signed lease, and a referral from an agency. We don't pick people directly, except for people within our congregation, and we're able to assist in that way. So we are working with someone directly who is able to join. She's on, but she's having some difficulties with the audio piece. So I'm hoping she'll be able to get the recording, and that we'll be able to connect her to some folks here. I've taken some good notes. But we are here, we have furniture vouchers. We do 1 per month. It's enough to, get a few things, but it's new furniture that the grant, it's a furniture store that is based in Brooklyn that provides this resource to us. So it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, I wanted to mention, so Desiree, the woman you're mentioning is, I'm not sure, we see her, but we can't hear her. But we spoke last week, and she said that she has an apartment in Brooklyn that apparently is just looking for a referral from HRA. And so I wanted to ask Sarah if there are landlords who are just looking for a referral, and if we can offline talk about getting a referral from HRA, is that something would that be a complicated thing, or should that be pretty easy? Sarah, what do you think?
Well, usually when people say something like that, it means that there's a tax credit or something attached to it. So I'm not, I mean, we can ask about that separate.
Right, we'll talk about
But,
it.
but
Yeah.
yeah, we also do have a unit that I think it's called the Hold and Support Unit, and they you can offer apartments to them, and they help organize and distribute them to the shelters through a system so that people can see them. So that's another thing. If landlords want to offer things, we always filter it to them, and they distribute it out through the system.
Great. Okay. So I want to open the floor up to any questions, particularly anyone who has not yet spoken. Harriet, why don't you go first? You unmute. You're muted. There you go.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Harriet and I'm a houser. So I run a community land trust on the Lower East Side in which we have 23 buildings. 2 of them are fairly new, they're rent stabilized, and the other ones are co-ops. And in our rent stabilized buildings, we just took 2 people from the shelter system, a family with 7 children and a single adult. And we've also taken them into our co-ops. We own the land under the buildings and another nonprofit owns the building. So what I wanted to say is that we have been told that we have to go through the Department of Homeless Services to get clients. Because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, why can't I just talk to all these wonderful people here? So that this may relate to what Sarah said about we're not a tax credit building, but we do have regulatory agreements with HPD. So maybe that's the reason.
Yeah, that's the reason. Yeah.
So what do you think? Is there any way around it, Sarah, or is there any way we can work with Harriet and her community?
No, I mean, the whole reason those are in place is that they make sure that that those units go to people who are in shelter. And that's part of the reason. I mean, the way to get into those units that go to HPD is to file a housing application when people are in shelter. We call it an HHA. And so there's been people that have filed those that are waiting. And so we kind of go through and then HPD goes through them and kind of relatively the order that people have been waiting and have been filed.
Oh, I see. So they have their own waiting list. Because it just seemed to me, by the way, this is just an aside, it took an awful long time for this process.
Can I just interject? If you go on New York City Housing Authority self-service portal, there's a section in there where you can like they ask you can like pick apartments, and they have those apartments on there. It's in
the Housing Connect.
Yeah, not in Housing Connect, in the NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority self-service portal, the NYCHA portal where you access the vouchers at. Well, they have direct those buildings directly inside that portal, so you can, and it goes to people in shelters. They have preferential treatment, so they pick those first. But you can access those apartments through the self-service portal.
Does that make it more possible for us to access some of Harriet's apartments?
I am really not familiar with what that is, so I don't think so. HPD would be totally different than NYCHA.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so let's hold that question in abeyance. But Harriet, I'm so glad to hear that you're doing this work. I know you've done through the years we've known each other. You've done so many things. They're all great. So here's another great thing that you're doing.
Right. I'm gonna get Sarah's contact number and have a longer conversation with her.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
So she could explain. So
Great.
you have to give me someone has to give me her number.
That's great. Okay, so let's go with
Mark,
another question from
Mark,
Bennett.
Mark, can I ask you one quick
Yes,
question,
Jose,
please?
again.
Yeah, I think the bottom line here is that the housing is very expensive in New York, especially in New York City, and it's out of reach
Picking up for Ruby.
for many people, you know, especially those who are coming home from prison. I wanna ask you, Mark, do you have any contacts with any elected official who will support this project? What we are discussing here today is very good, but we need a elected official to support us in this program?
We have many elected officials right now. There are 51 elected officials who are having an argument with one elected official, 51 elected officials with the city council arguing with the mayor, and they're trying to figure it out. The 4 bills that were passed by the city council would expand voucher access significantly, and the mayor is feeling that it might be too expensive. So there's working that through. So there's a lot of movement, and but we can talk more about what changes we think are possible. There's clearly a lot of support. There's also a lot of concerns about the costs, but let's put the political questions aside for now. But I wanted to ask Bennett if he had a question, and then John, I think, was next, and then Jackie, and then Peter.
Yeah, I wanted to raise, I think this is great, and I'm happy to share this with our organization, Open Hearts, which is lots of supportive neighbors who would love to participate in this project. A couple of them who are on tonight. I wanted to raise, and apologies if it's already in the documents that you're creating, but as far as the idea of convincing landlords to accept voucher holders, I think it's super helpful. Any kind of messaging we can do about the fact that one being in a shelter does not make someone less likely to be a good tenant and things like that. But as far as the law is concerned, you know, the landlords don't need to be convinced. It's the law that they must, it's illegal to discriminate based on source of income. And so I think that this could also be an opportunity to, as partners and fellows are working through listings, to have a flow through which they can report experiences of source of income discrimination so that can be corrected. Because I think there's 2 issues, which is one, like efficiently connecting people to apartments and landlords that will accept them smoothly and get people out of the shelter and into housing, but also really using the protections we have to prevent source of income discrimination in the future. So when that's encountered, and unfortunately, you know, it will be encountered often by people in this program, finding ways to report that and make sure, you know, landlords and brokers are made aware of the law and held accountable to what is their legal obligation.
Yeah, your point is well taken. Let me say that we are looking for potential partners, and certainly landlords that are blatant in their denial of people because of their source of income. They certainly should be held accountable. And as we know, the city is increasing its enforcement staff significantly. So hopefully the worst offenders will decide that it's not in their best interest. Just for those people who don't know, there's at this point, a $100,000 fine for a landlord that unknowingly discriminates. I mean, not knowing that it's against the law, and $150,000 fine per apartment for a landlord that discriminates based on source of income if they know it's against the law or something like that. So they're pretty hefty fines, but of course, landlords often know the right thing not to say. So it is it's an arduous task to prosecute. What we're hoping is that landlords would be wanting to participate if they feel that this is not something that would be detrimental. And I think your first point, that certainly the stories of good folks who are tenants with vouchers, who are supported and end up being good tenants, those are the stories we want to push. We want landlords to know this is a good deal. As Sarah said, you can get 4 months of rent up front, and you can have a good tenant. You can have a good member of your community. And landlords, many landlords have open hearts. Some don't want to rent to anybody. They just want to raise the rent so they can they can rent to the highest bidder. Those aren't the folks we're going to get to help us. We want to try on the people who really want to be part of the solution. So, Jackie.
Thank you, Mark, for this space, and thanks to everybody for the amazing conversation and all the things we learned this This night, I think also something we need like to think about is my organization, and then it's all together in dignity. Ultimately, we are not providers of service. We follow people who have experience in poverty, and from that we try to have incidents in policies. And from most of the people we know, they are really struggles about housing in different matters. And something who it's a struggle for some of them is like, even though they have, they struggle and fight to be recognized as voucher holders and have an apartment. After that, they need like to every year to renew this voucher. And it's a source of stress for many of them. And I think it's the same for many people who think they are safe because they have one apartment, but they still like stand like, yes, I am a voucher holder and I need to renew my process every year. And many of them are not with the capacity to do it. So I think also we need like to protect people when they arrive to have one apartment to be sure this renewal process is something easy for them. So to fragilize their situation or to don't feel like isolated because that's. Thank you.
Thank you. So we said we'd end at 7:30. I'm going to try to honor that commitment that people have made.
Yes.
John, why don't you go for a minute, Peter for a minute, and then we'll close. I know Patrick has his hand up since the beginning, so we want to give you a minute. Then we have 5 minutes to close and to figure out next steps. So John, why don't you go?
Cool. Harriet, getting back to you. You're looking for someone to fill the place with a voucher. Am I correct? Did I understand that?
Not right at the moment, but you know.
And the problem was that but
They would let us go to you guys or to go to an organization and get somebody who has a voucher. They said that we had to accept that.
Yeah, there are people outside the shelter with vouchers too. And there are people.
Yes, we know that. That's what we wanted to do, but they said we couldn't.
But that should be an easy fix. I mean, they should be able to go, if you have a housing and they have the voucher and they want a housing, Sarah, what's wrong with that? I mean, you don't have to be in a shelter.
I think there's some thing about certain kinds of housing, ones that have agreements with different agencies or something.
Sarah,
like
what do you think? Is there people who have vouchers but aren't in shelters would be eligible to go into?
No, that will not happen. No, the city pays millions and millions and millions of dollars in tax credits for those units. And it's really the focus is on the shelter system, which is strained beyond capacity.
Section 8 as well as city FEPs.
And sometimes there's HUD rules that people have to be officially homeless. And so that's also then the third thing can be the tax financing, which you said is not applicable here.
Very good. So listen, I'm reminded. Yeah, I just want, sorry to interrupt, but I'm reminded by Anne and also by Drew, who said that we have not yet sufficiently outlined the role of the partner. So I want to do that before we finish, and then maybe we can take another question or two. But so again, we are looking to match someone who's willing to be a partner with someone who's we're calling a fellow who has a voucher. The point is that the partner would then establish a relationship, a connection, a support relationship with that voucher holder, and get to know that person, probably spend maybe an hour a week on the phone or on Zoom, understanding the challenges that the person is going through and trying to get housing. They wouldn't need to figure out all the issues because we have people like Drew and like Pietro and others that we can call on, including Eric, hopefully, and Adrian, if issues come up that need to be addressed. What we really want is someone to kind of walk with someone, to come and accompany someone and say, let's try to sort out what your issues are. Now you're trying to find an apartment. Let's try to help you find an apartment. But in the meantime, what else is going on? Are you having some health issues? Are you having some financial issues? Or what else is causing you to not be at your best? And let's help you work through that. So it's really a matter of establishing a supportive relationship. And not only one-on-one, but as part of a community. So we'd be having a meeting once a month, probably more than that. Again, we're just standing this up. We're going to figure out what works. Where if let's say Magali was working with Luana, and Luana is going to be working with someone else. But let's say Magali was looking for an apartment, and Luana, we decided Luana would be her partner. You guys would talk. You'd figure out are you a good match? You then find out what are the issues that you're dealing with. Maybe not much. I mean, in addition to looking for an apartment, you're also maybe looking for work, because you said, so there are a lot of things that go into getting your life together along with getting an apartment. It's hard to, when you're not in an apartment, to get your life together, but there are other things that need to happen for someone to really live a full life. So that's really what the nature of the partner is trying to figure out what this person needs as they're looking for housing. And we will then try to help them get the housing while we're also helping them to put other pieces in place. So that's a basic idea. Drew, do you want to say anything else about any details that I'm?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily that anything you missed, but just kind of so maybe a slightly different spin on it. Again, the idea is the fellowship of accompaniment, and I guess a partner's purpose is to accompany these people along their journey towards housing, and that might simply be a friendly ear that lets someone vent. That might be someone who has similar life experience to some other challenges person has faced. And when you're dealing with homelessness or incarceration or anything else, there are usually a confluence of different things that all kind of come together that contribute to each other. So you may find people who have struggles with employment or education or mental health or past incarceration or domestic violence. And if there are partners who have any experience in those areas professionally or personally, we may be able to try and match people who have similar experiences to support each other. But again, just a friendly ear to give some advice, to let someone vent, and maybe to be a reality check if someone's struggling, saying, hey, I went through this thing and this is what happened to me. What do you think about that? And again, I just think that there's such a power in having someone from the community be there to say, we want to talk to you, we want to support you, and we're willing to offer our insight and our experience and just a friendly ear.
Mm-hmm. And let me say, for example, so I mentioned Patrick earlier. I didn't mention his name, but since he told us a little bit about himself, he has a history of incarceration. We found a site that we thought would be perfect for Patrick, and then his parole officer said, no, that site's not good. It took Patrick about 3 weeks to get an answer from his parole officer that the site wasn't good. Very frustrating. But so Patrick's partner would say, okay, let's find some other sites. Let's ask the PO if that site's going to work. So sometimes just a matter of getting over that one hump at a time, which can be very frustrating if you do it on your own. But if you have someone to talk with about it, maybe who can guide you or can help you, then that can make it livable. But to do, as we know, no one does anything on their own. We all need someone to support us, and that's what a partner does. It's just to walk with you and help you. And then of course, as Vicky was saying, she went through it for 5 years. So to have Vicky as part of our support group, she can say, you know what, I've been through that. I know how hard it is, but believe me, hang in there, it can work. And maybe try this. Maybe there's something that the city is not doing, or that the social worker is not doing, or that the building hasn't done. That's really what it is. It's listening and finding out what's needed. I just want to say one other thing. Alice and I are, again, and Devon are with this group in Midtown. We've been working with a gentleman for about 4 months. We found out he had a major health problem. Finally, one of our volunteers got him to the hospital, got him his dialysis. They said if he hadn't had dialysis, he might have died. Then we got him to a place, and then he got arrested because he was late in appearing in his parole meeting. He ended up in Rikers. Well, but he was so ill because they didn't take his medication. Within 12 hours, he was back at Bellevue. He almost died again. Well, we advocated for him. We wrote to the parole office. We got him released. So sometimes it's a matter of understanding what the issues are. When someone is sometimes a little depressed to even know what the issues are, and helping work it through and get to the other side. That's what it takes. It takes having a friend. Some folks are having a very difficult time. They need a friend.
That's right. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we're at 7:29. I just want to say everybody who's come will get a copy of this Zoom. We're going to be writing to everybody asking you if you want to be, if you want to be a partner. If you have a voucher, we're going to send you a form to fill out if you're interested, and ask you any other way that you can help. And we will get back to you soon about our next steps. So again, we're just starting this up. This is our first official meeting. And I think it was wonderful to have all of you with us. And I think we're off to a very good start. Any other closing thoughts?
Well, I did have a question, Mark.
I had a question though.
Who's that?
Mark.
It was me, Parrish, man.
Peter is.
Peter.
Go ahead, Peter. What's your question?
Yeah, Peter Cook, New York State Council Churches. We work with the Assembly on public policy and also through the Interfaith Housing Collaborative on public policy. So my question was sort of directed in Sarah's direction, but with the City Council passing the new city theft rules, I know there's work to do. How, in your opinion, will that improve what you're able to do?
I can't really comment on that. I can't comment on the bills. And actually none of them had to do anything with our process, but I will say that and internally on our own volition, we are setting up right now to have in-person standard training for city FEPs for all those shelter workers and all of our partners that send in applications. COVID kind of messed that up a little bit, and we went through 9 different programs under de Blasio. So we really want to set up a very good training given the turnover and everything that we have in the systems. So we're looking to get that up in the next couple of months, where there's always some more training available to people, both in person and digital. And then we also are just really trying to improve our technology again with all these different programs coming so quickly. Like DHS has to email things to HRA, which you know how that goes. Like that's not a foolproof system. Like, and we really are, by the end of the year, we're really starting to get a lot more shelters, and then eventually through next year, we'll have all of the DHS and HRA will all be in the same system to see and process vouchers. So that will also be incredibly helpful for us and speed up processing. So we are continuing to work on our process stuff as we go along here.
Thank you, Sarah. And I just want to say that, again, I've been so impressed and so grateful to Sarah to be willing to come out, and where people sometimes are so critical of the city and they blame it on Sarah. Sarah's on the inside trying to make things better. And I think maybe we're also providing her a little bit of encouragement so that she's also not alone in trying to get things to work. And we all are learning from each other. And so I just want to thank everyone for being here, for your willingness to join us. I know there are a lot of good people who haven't spoken that I know, and we will be in touch with all of you. I just want to say, Magali said she'd like to be a fellow, but eventually would like to be a partner. And I said, I think she could be a wonderful partner. And that's the whole point. We're all here to support each other. No matter where we are, we need support, and we can also support others. And we're hoping that this is the beginning of something very special, when people will not feel so alone, and we can really get a lot of our brothers and sisters into home where they can then give back. So
2 quick comments, if I may.
If
If
you're
you're interested in being a partner, I'd love if you'd comment in the chat so we can make sure we know that. And I know we're a little over time, but I'll be happy to stick around if anybody else has questions or comments they care to discuss. Thank you.
Very good. Absolutely. Thank you all.
Yes.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a
Thank you.
pleasure.
This is
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks, everybody.